Cut. This is The Cut. The Cut Podcast with Pete Ferguson. Film, music, games, entertainment. This is The Cut from Telegraph Talk.
Hello and welcome back to The Cut, the weekly entertainment podcast from The Telegraph. This week, War Child's Ben Knowles talks to Clive Morgan on plans for the Brit Awards charity after-party. Bernadette McNulty reviews the new Sade album. Claudine Beaumont talks about internet browser technology, including Chrome from Google. And Tim Roby recovers from last week's bout of man flu and picks his film of the week.
The Cut from telegraph.co.uk.
First, Clive Morgan has been talking to Ben Knowles this week about War Child's plans for the Brit Awards charity after-party. And he began by asking Ben what War Child's aims are.
War Child's a very small international children's charity based in the UK, and we work with children who suffer from the most brutal effects of war in the world's harshest war zone.
And I mean, you say that you're a small charity, but you work with some of the biggest names in music, so how do you get them involved?
We've been very lucky. In the 15, 16 years that War Child's been in existence, a lot of our work's only been possible because of the amazing support of the music industry. I'm sure most listeners will remember our first musical foray was an album we released in 1995, which is an album called Help, which raised well over £1 million for the conflict in Bosnia.
And talking of this annual post-Brit Award concert, last year you had The Killers and Coldplay, who then obviously had the guests Bono and Gary Barlow. I attended last year and it was quite a special night. I mean, especially when Gary came on and sang Back for Good.
Back for Good, yeah.
Bono joining everyone on stage as well to sing All These Things I've Done. Does the music not detract slightly from the serious message of War Child?
The amount of awareness raising that we get from the support of the calibre of artists who do support us is invaluable. So although we're very firm in concentrating on making the music events that we do all about the music, we do use that as an opportunity to talk to the audience we have at the venue, to talk to the artists themselves, and talk to a wider audience about the most important thing, which is that the prosecution of war on children is fundamentally wrong.
What kind of surprises can we have in store this year?
Now, if I said, they wouldn't be surprised, obviously. And one of the great things about the event for us, and this is the second year we've done it, and it was like when we did last year, it was the first time an event like this had been attempted, is you do have an assembly of the great and the good from the international music industry in one big room at the same time. And I think one of the big attractions from the inaugural event that we had last year was that there wasn't really anywhere for those people to go afterwards and to do something that was about the music as opposed to it being about going and having a drink with your friends from the record label. So the atmosphere in the venue was fantastic, and the people who came down had a great time, not only the people who filled the venue but also the artists who joined in on stage, as you said earlier, towards the end of the gig. So I think fingers crossed, we'll be delivering some surprises similar to that this year. I know LaRue has been working hard on something already.
Ben Knowles of War Child, thank you very much for your time and good luck with the gig on February the 16th.
Thank you very much.
I got soul, but I'm not a soldier. The Cut Podcast with Pete Ferguson.
And some tickets are still available to see War Child's Brit Awards charity after party, and well worth going to if you can. And we have a link to various gig tickets that you can buy to some of the biggest acts in the world. Simply head to telegraph.co.uk/The Cut and follow the link. Still to come, Tim Roby picks his film of the week, and Claudine Beaumont talks me through new internet browser technology, which might sound dull, but is in fact quite enlightening.
Music.
Time now, though, for a bit of an 80s revival with Telegraph music critic Bernadette McNulty. Starting off, Bernadette, with Peter Gabriel's new album.
This is a really unusual album for him to come out with because essentially it's an album of cover versions.
Scratch My Back.
Scratch My Back.
That's the name of the album, by the way. I'm not asking him to do that.
He's not got a difficult position in the studio. And it's a very interesting concept because he's covering artists who are then going to do an album. I think it's called I'll Scratch Yours. It's going to be released in a month's time, where they cover his songs.
That's genius.
That is genius. And it's an interesting move because cover versions have obviously, throughout the history of music been popular, but the last sort of, I'd say, 5-6 years, they've really taken off as a kind of craze again. You had the whole Joe Wiley Live Lounge. Even if you think about X Factor, essentially, it's a lot of cover versions. So for someone who's like credible, like Peter Gabriel, to do this seems a bit of a weird move. But he's not just sort of doing. It's like he set himself a list of rules. There's no drums and no guitars. So essentially, it's just string accompaniment to it, and that gives instantly every song. I mean, these are kind of songs that you might know. There's like Peter Gabriel, Boy in the Bubble, and there is Elbow, Mirrorball. There are some that are less well known, but I think you would struggle at first to recognise most of the songs, even if you knew them to start off with. They're just completely transformed.
Mm-hmm. But you like it? I
really like it. Some of them work better than others. He does David Bowie's Heroes, and I think that's just such a kind of, I don't know, the word's a little bit overused, but iconic song. It's really hard, I think, to kind of do that again, and to slow it down. It sounds slightly, I don't know, hysterical. We could be hero, it just sort of has all the wrong kind of feelings for me. But then there are some things that work beautifully, like he does a version of Bon Iver Flume, which I much prefer to the original version. And I think the standout one, the one that everyone's talking about, is this version of The Magnetic Fields. Not a huge band, bit of a cult band, and the song called The Book of Love, and it's absolutely beautiful. And he does it, and I think it's his daughter singing with him on it, and it's just one of the most beautiful songs I've heard in ages. So it's like nothing else you've heard before. It's a complete antidote to a lot of the overproduced pop that's around at the moment, and it will make you think again and maybe dig out a lot of these artists. It would be very interesting to hear what the follow-up album sounds like.
Okay, let's have a quick listen to Peter Gabriel then and Book of Love from that new album, Scratch My Back.
But I love it when you give me things, and you ought to give me wedding rings.
So that's Peter Gabriel. Let's kind of stay in the 80s, 90s. Sade. Wow, Soldiers of Love.
She's got a bit of a funny rep in this country, because I think when she shot to fame in the 80s, this whole smooth operator, your love is king. I mean, I think her problem is that she just was... she came to symbolise for some people, I suppose, what they sort of say, wine bar kind of music.
Middle of the road.
It was that whole time when people were sort of, on the up in the 80s, and sort of soul music became popular again. But I think as a consequence of that, a lot of people think it's dated. She's not really changed her style massively. So the first thing you hear when you listen to this album, it's that slightly Spanish guitar sound, and you're like, oh my God, I've stepped back in time. But she makes amazingly well-produced albums. So while at first you think, oh, it's just the same album all over again, there are actually just really subtle tweaks in it. Her voice is still amazing. She's 50. I find that it's absolutely astonishing.
She doesn't look it, does she?
She's very well preserved, our Sade. Her voice is amazing because she doesn't have a great range. It's not like she's kind of warbling like she's no Mariah Carey, but she's always used it really effectively. And the real standout track on it is Soldier of Love. I mean, there's a sort of like military feel to it. It's kind of got quite a modern production, but it's very subtle. And it goes on for about 6 minutes, but you wouldn't know. It's just hypnotising.
All right, nice one. I think we should have a little listen to that title track to the album, and I'm going to get a glass of Chardonnay. Thank you very much. Enjoy your week.
I'm a soldier of love. All the days of my life, I've been torn up inside. I've been left behind. So I ride. I've been willing to survive in the wild, wild west. Trying my hardest, doing my best to stay alive.
This is The Cut.
That's Sade, Soldier of Love, the title track to her new album. For more music reviews from Bernadette and the team of art critics here at The Telegraph, head to telegraph.co.uk/The Cut. Now here's Clive Morgan and Tim Roby.
Film.
We're here to talk film, so welcome back to our film critic, Tim Roby. Hey, let's begin with The Wolfman, which is rated 15.
Well, okay, so this is the werewolf story again. Benicio del Toro is the Wolfman, and it co-stars Anthony Hopkins and Emily Blunt. Big cast. This film has been sitting around a while, though. It was shot about 2 years ago.
That doesn't bode well then, does it really?
Often it doesn't, and you can sort of see why, because the movie they've ended up with is kind of a bit flat, to be honest. The storytelling, though, it just feels to me like they haven't come up with a sufficiently novel spin on the werewolf story. So it just kind of takes you through the motions. And Benicio del Toro, who turns up to try and find out what happened to his brother, who's been sort of savagely murdered. And I don't think Benicio is given enough to do early on, so you don't really invest in him or care in the character all that much. It's clearly trying to model itself on something like Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's got a lot of that same kind of brooding atmosphere. But I think that film is kind of a crazy hoot. I love it. And this one I'm not so sure about.
And so on that note, how many stars are you going to give it?
It's sort of a 2.5 because it's just a rather ordinary film. I mean, if I was really pushed on it, I'd probably give it 2, to be honest. But it gets an extra half just for kind of the level of design and sort of some of the visual effects in it.
So that's The Wolfman, which is rated 15, and that's 2.5 stars from Tim. So let's move on to something that's supposed to be more fun. Percy Jackson, which is a PG.
Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, which is the new kind of kid-lit thing. It's sort of the new Harry Potter, the idea is. And he is the son of Poseidon, this kid. He's this American kid. They accuse him for some reason of having stolen Zeus's lightning, and he has to kind of restore it to the gods on Olympus.
As you would as the son of a god.
As you would. And it has quite a big cast in these sort of weird bitty roles. Like Pierce Brosnan is a centaur. Sean Bean is Zeus, Kevin McKidd is Poseidon, and Uma Thurman is Medusa. It's a big cast, but in these really kind of silly and curtailed roles, and they're clearly trying to sort of amp up the name recognition value of the whole thing just by kind of bringing people in for a few days to do their turn, and I think it's pretty lousy, to be honest. I think all 3 of the lead kids are just absolute charisma-free zones. You just don't really want to kind of watch them on screen.
So it sounds very much like Mars Attacks all over again.
Well, Mars Attacks at least has some kind of crazy Tim Burton, touches to it. I think this is Chris Columbus, who did the first 2 Harry Potter films, which by most people's yardstick are not really very good as films. It's just so derivative.
So that's Percy Jackson, and how many stars is that worth for you?
It's 1, I'm afraid. I have to call a spade with this film. It's a 1-star film.
Well, so that's Percy Jackson, which is a PG, and only worth 1 from Tim Roby. And the final film this week, A Single Man, which is Tom Ford's film debut.
This is Tom Ford's debut, so you're expecting style, and you certainly get style. Colin Firth plays the lead character, who is a bereaved bachelor, a gay man in 1950s in America, and he gets the phone call that his lover has died in a car accident. So you're expecting something really sort of contemplative and quite sad, and I think Tom Ford rather overdoes the style. It gets a bit too precious, really. Colin Firth is really good in the film, completely deserves his Oscar nomination, and I think the film is just an odd fit with that performance.
So this film is basically all about Colin Firth.
For me, it's Colin great, film a bit silly.
So how many stars is it worth?
3, I think. 3 because, the performance is good enough that I think it's worth seeing.
Your film of the week then is A Single Man, which has 3 stars, followed by The Wolfman, 2.5, and Poor Percy Jackson, which only has 1. So Tim, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
You can check out more film reviews online at telegraph.co.uk/The Cut.
The Cut, Thursdays from The Telegraph.
Now here's Telegraph Gadget Inspector Claudine Beaumont. So Claudine, we're talking about web browsers. I'm almost asleep already, but they are very important, of course, aren't they?
They are. They're our gateway to the web.
Now, it's dominated by Internet Explorer, but Internet Explorer and Microsoft have been having some security issues recently.
Yeah, some big problems recently. I mean, you're right, web browsers is not exactly the sexiest topic in the history of the world, but it's an important one because this is the thing that we use to get online every day, and it's actually one of the easiest ways as well for hackers and cyber criminals to access your computer, commit identity fraud, that sort of thing. So Internet Explorer has had a few high-profile vulnerabilities recently, one of them being the one that allowed hackers in China to hack into Google and precipitated that whole kind of debate about whether or not Google would continue running its business in China. And the French and German governments actually advised their citizens to install a different web browser other than Internet Explorer because they were so concerned at the security threat that this posed. So
that's unprecedented, isn't it?
It's unprecedented. The UK government just obviously didn't do anything, just sort of said, we don't see any reason to get involved in this. But the general advice from most security experts that I've spoken to is that it's definitely a good time to make sure you're either running the most up-to-date version of Internet Explorer, which is Internet Explorer 8. If you're still using Internet Explorer 6, shame on you. I'm going to find your address, I'm going to come around and sort your computer out. Yeah. So make sure you're running Internet Explorer 8 or try a different web browser like Firefox or Chrome.
So, what are the alternatives?
Well, there's a few alternatives, but by far and away, Internet Explorer is the most popular in the UK. But coming up a close second, with sort of 20% of the market as opposed to 60%, is Firefox, made by Mozilla. I think we're on to version 3.5 of that at the moment, and lots of people use that as their web browser. And it has these great things like toolbar extensions that you can just plug in and around the browser window to give you quick access to things like Facebook or Twitter. Lots of little handy tools, so it's definitely worth investigating.
And it's free as well.
It's free. All of these browsers are free to download.
Including Explorer.
Yeah.
What about Chrome?
Chrome is Google's browser. They launched that last year, doing pretty well, steadily putting on some market share, but not proving hugely popular. One of the big debates about Chrome, actually, is the way that it logs every single keystroke that you make. Basically, Google knows what you're typing into your address bar.
Oh, God.
I know. Dun, dun, dun. So, yeah, it's different. It's not just looking at what you put in the search bar, it's putting literally what you type in the address bar. Every site that you visit, it knows about. And it's obviously, it says that it doesn't do anything sinister with this information, but that might be a consideration for some people who are a bit worried about online privacy.
There is an incognito option with Chrome.
Yes, this is true. You can browse subtly.
What's the best option for speed?
For speed, Chrome comes out top in a lot of speed tests, but of course it's more than just about speed. You know, you've got to think about the whole web browsing experience. Security is a key part of that. And Internet Explorer, despite the fact it's got all these sort of, loopholes and vulnerabilities we keep hearing about, is actually the most secure browser, and it's just a victim really to some degree of its own success. It's the most popular, and therefore it's the one that's going to be the whipping boy for hackers and the ne'er-do-wells on the internet. But Chrome generally comes out fastest in speed tests, and it's got this thing where it isolates tabs while you're browsing. So even if one tab crashes, the whole browsing session won't go down, which obviously, if you've got 10 tabs open, is quite important.
We're living in a Google-dominated world, aren't we?
We are.
What do you use, by the way?
Well, see, I have all of them on my computer at work in the interests of impartiality. Personally, at home, I use Firefox because I use a lot of the browser extensions just to do quick and easy things on the web. For a lot of people, I think Internet Explorer 8 is absolutely perfectly adequate, but I do think, it's not going to do your computer any harm if you install a couple of browsers on there and just flip between them, see what you think. It's variety is the spice of life, as they say.
Quite right. All right, Claudine, thank you.
Telegraph.co.uk/The Cut.
Well, there we go. Who'd have thought that browser technology could be so interesting? And as always, we'd love to know your thoughts on that, as well as anything else covered in The Cut this week. You can email us, thecut@telegraph.co.uk, as well as follow us on Facebook. Just do a search for The Cut Podcast from the Daily Telegraph. And we're also on twitter.com/The Cut Podcast. Finally, don't forget you have up until the 16th of February to register for the brand new fantasy football game from the Telegraph, where you can win £10,000. To enter, all you have to do is head to telegraph.co.uk/The Cut and follow the link. But that's it for this week. Thanks as always for listening. I'm Pete Ferguson, and that was The Cut.